My girlfriend joked about cheating on me in my own apartment, convinced I'd never catch on. But I did. So I gathered her things, showed her the door, and left her to face the consequences of her choices. My name is Oliver, I'm 29, and I work as a logistics analyst in Rotterdam. My weeks are pretty structured, early trains, long spreadsheets, gym after work, and I'm usually home by 8 unless a shipment goes sideways. My girlfriend Lena is 27. We've been together a little over a year, and she's been staying at my apartment most nights for the last 4 months. It is my place, my lease, my furniture. She keeps some clothes here and has a key because it made life easier. Lena can be fun in small doses, but she has this habit of turning everything into a contest. If I'm tired, she's more tired. If I'm stressed, she somehow has it worse. And she likes to needle me in front of other people, like it proves she has the upper hand. A couple weeks ago we had friends over for drinks. Nothing wild, just a Friday night, board game, background music. Lena was in one of her moods, snapping at me for stupid stuff like where I put the bottle opener and how I stabbed the glasses. At some point she said, casually, that if she ever cheated, she would do it right here because I would never notice. She said it like a joke, but she kept going. She pointed at my bedroom door like it was a punchline. People laugh the way they laugh when they do not want to make it awkward. I didn't laugh. I asked her what she meant. She rolled her eyes and told me I was sensitive and that it was obviously a joke. Then she leaned over and added that I was too predictable to catch anything anyway. I let it go in the moment because I didn't want to blow up a room full of friends. But the comment stuck to my brain. Not because I thought she had definitely cheated, but because she sounded so sure of the setup. Like she'd rehearsed the confidence part already. The next day she acted normal, even extra sweet, like the whole thing had been nothing. That should have reassured me. Instead it made me feel like I was being managed. So I did something I've never done before in any relationship. I checked my own apartment like I was a stranger in it. And that is when I found the first thing that did not belong to either of us. What I found was a men's hoodie stuffed behind the bottom shelf in my wardrobe. Not mine. Not even close to my size. Different brand, different scent, and definitely not something Lena would wear. It was folded badly, like it had been shoved in a hurry. I did not confront her immediately. I wanted to be sure before I accused someone of something that serious. I checked my laundry basket. Nothing new. Checked the bathroom cabinet. No extra toothbrush. Checked under the bed. Nothing dramatic. But the hoodie alone was enough to make my stomach drop. When Lena came over that evening, she walked in like usual, kissed me on the cheek, and started talking about a coworker she hated. I watched her move around my kitchen like she owned the place. That bothered me more than usual. I waited until she was halfway through a rant before I brought it up. I found something in my closet today. Do you want to explain it? She didn't even flinch. She just said what now in that bored tone she uses when she thinks I'm being difficult. I brought the hoodie out and laid it on the table. She stared at it for maybe 2 seconds and then laughed. Not nervous. Not confused. Just amused. Oh, that. It's from my cousin. I borrowed it months ago. I asked which cousin. She hesitated for a fraction too long, then said Thomas. I've met Telltales. He's taller than me, but built like a marathon runner. The hoodie I was holding was broad in the shoulders, thick fabric, gym brand, the kind of thing someone who lifts heavy would wear. I told her that didn't make sense. She sighed dramatically and said I was being paranoid again. Again, that word stuck out, as if there was a pattern of me imagining things. There isn't. I'm not the jealous type. I've never checked a partner's phone. I've never accused anyone of cheating without evidence. I asked her why it was hidden in my wardrobe instead of with her clothes. She shrugged and said she probably just tossed it in there without thinking. Probably. The way she dismissed it so easily felt rehearsed. No concern that I'd found something suspicious. No effort to reassure me beyond calling me dramatic. That was when I realized something else. She wasn't worried about convincing me. She was convinced I would accept whatever she said. That night, I didn't escalate. I told her I wasn't satisfied with the explanation and that we would revisit it later. She rolled her eyes and said there was nothing to revisit. Then she changed the subject to what we were ordering for dinner. That shift was intentional. Lena hates staying on uncomfortable topics. She overwhelms them with normalcy until you feel unreasonable for still caring. I decided to stay quiet and observe instead of argue. If I was wrong, time would expose that. If I was right, time would expose that too. Over the next week, I paid attention to patterns. She had started insisting on hosting her friends at my place instead of hers. She said my apartment was nicer and closer to the city center. That part was true. What was new was how territorial she acted when I questioned anything. One evening she told me not to come home early because she and her friend Marta were having wine and needed girl time. I said fine. I went to the gym longer than usual and grabbed dinner out. But something about it bothered me. Not jealousy, just logistics. Marta lives across town and works early mornings. She usually leaves gatherings by 10. That night Lena texted me at 11:30 saying they were still talking. At midnight she sent a message saying I could come home whenever. When I got back, the place smelled different. Not obviously like cologne. Just different. The windows were open even though it was cold outside. Lena was in pajamas, hair damp like she had just showered. I asked how Marta was. She said tired and already home. I asked what they talked about. She gave vague answers. Work drama. Philly stuff. I checked the trash the next morning before I left for work. 2 wine glasses in the sink. 3 empty beer bottles in the recycling. Lena does not drink beer. Werther hates it. I did not confront her right then. I needed something more solid than inconsistencies. But at that point I stopped thinking in terms of if. I started thinking in terms of when. And if she was bold enough to joke about cheating in my apartment, I needed to see how bold she actually was. 2 days later, I created a situation on purpose. I told Lena I had to travel to Utrecht for a last-minute supplier meeting and would stay overnight. There was believable given my job. Logistics does not run on perfect schedules. There was no meeting. I left my apartment at 6 in the evening with a small overnight bag, so it looked normal. I walked 3 blocks, waited 20 minutes, then came back quietly. I did not use my front door. I used the secondary entrance to the building that only residents know about, and took the stairs instead of the elevator. When I reached my door, I could hear music inside. Not loud, just enough to cover conversation. I unlocked the door as quietly as possible. The hallway light was off. The living room light was on. I stepped in and heard her laugh. Not the polite social laugh she uses around my colleagues. It was the flirty one. The one she used when we first met. There was a man sitting on my couch. Mid-30s maybe. Broad shoulders. Gym build. Wearing a hoodie I recognized instantly. Same brand as the one in my closet. Different color. Lena was sitting close to him. Not touching, but angled toward him in a way that made their dynamic obvious. For a second nobody moved. Then Lena's face went blank. Not shocked. Not embarrassed. Blank. I asked a simple question. Who is this? She stood up slowly and said I was not supposed to be home. That sentence told me more than anything else could have. The guy looked uncomfortable, but not confused. Which meant he knew about me. He just did not expect me back. Lena tried to switch into irritation mode. She said I had lied about traveling and that invading her space was controlling. She actually used the word controlling while standing in my living room with another man. I did not yell. I did not ask for explanations. I did not argue over technicalities. I looked at the man and said this is my apartment. You need to leave. He hesitated, looked at Lena, and stood up. No bravado. No denial. Just compliance. That told me enough. As soon as the guy walked past me and out the door, I locked it behind him. I did not slam it. I did not shout down the hallway. I just turned the lock and faced Lena. She started talking immediately. Not apologizing. Not explaining. Talking fast. She said it was not what it looked like. She said I was overreacting. She said I embarrassed her. That was the moment I stopped listening. I walked into the bedroom and pulled one of my empty suitcases out from under the bed. She followed me, demanding that I engage. I told her calmly that the conversation was over. She laughed in that sharp way she does when she thinks I am bluffing. You are not serious, she said. I opened her side of the wardrobe and started taking her clothes off the hangers. Not throwing them. Folding them roughly but efficiently and placing them in the suitcase. She stood there watching like she expected me to crack and turn it into a dramatic speech. I did not give her one. She switched tactics. Suddenly I was crazy. I was insecure. I was violating her privacy by coming home to my own apartment. She said if I trusted her this would not be happening. I reminded her of one fact. You told me I would never catch you in my own apartment. Then I did. That shut her up for about 3 seconds. She tried to minimize it. She said nothing physical happened. She said they were just talking. I told her I did not need a technical breakdown of what line had or had not been crossed. The intention was obvious. The setup was obvious. And most importantly, she felt entitled to do it in my space. I packed everything of hers I could find. Clothes, shoes, cosmetics from the bathroom, the spare charger she kept by my couch. I put it all into 2 suitcases and 1 reusable grocery bag. When I was done, I carried everything into the hallway and set it by the door. You need to leave tonight, I said. Your name is not on the lease. I will give you 10 minutes to call someone or book a ride. She stared at me like she was waiting for me to blink. I did not. She did not move for a solid minute. Then she started bargaining. Where am I supposed to go? She asked. It was almost impressive how quickly she shifted from outrage to helplessness. I told her that was something she should have considered before inviting another man over when she thought I was gone. I was not raising my voice. I was not insulting her. I was stating a logistical reality. She said it was late and that I was being extreme. I reminded her that she had a full-time job, friends in the city, and family an hour away. This was not abandonment. This was consequences. Then she tried guilt. After everything I've done for you, she said. That one almost made me laugh. The apartment was mine. The utilities were in my name. The furniture was mine. The groceries that week were mine. The key in her bag was mine. What exactly have you done for me? I asked. She called me cold. She said no one would tolerate this. She said I was proving her point about being controlling. I picked up her spare key from the hook by the door and held my hand out. Give me the other one. She hesitated again. That hesitation told me she had briefly considered refusing. But she knew legally she had no standing. Her name was not on the lease. She was a guest who had overstayed her welcome. She handed it over. I stepped into the hallway with her bags and held the door open. She stood inside the apartment like she expected me to physically drag her out. I did not. I waited. Eventually pride outweighed strategy. She grabbed her phone and one of the suitcases and walked past me. I carried the second one and set it down next to her in the corridor. I am blocking you tonight, I said. If you need to collect anything I missed, you can email me, and we will arrange a specific time while I am present. She stared at me like she was trying to memorize my face for a later argument. Then she said something that confirmed everything. You were never supposed to find out like this. Not I am sorry. Not I messed up. Just that I disrupted her timeline. The first thing I did after closing the door was block her number. Then I blocked her on WhatsApp and Instagram. I did not delete the chat history. I just cut off direct access. I have no interest in dramatic midnight paragraphs or emotional spirals disguised as explanations. I stood in the hallway for a minute and let the quiet settle. No shouting through the door. No banging. Just silence. I did a practical sweep of the apartment. Bathroom cabinet clear. Closet empty on her side. Kitchen drawers free of her things. I changed the Wi-Fi password and removed her device from the building access app. That part was administrative, not emotional. About 20 minutes later my intercom buzzed. I did not answer. It buzzed again. I muted it. Then my phone lit up with a number I did not recognize. I let it ring. A message came through right after. It was her. You are seriously throwing away a year over nothing. I did not reply. I blocked the unknown number immediately. 5 minutes later, another new number texted. This one was more aggressive. You are embarrassing yourself. Locked. Third attempt. This one softer. From it just talk. Locked again. The speed of it was almost clinical. She was not reflecting. She was trying different angles to see which one got a reaction. Anger. Shame. Vulnerability. Same objective underneath. Access. I did not give it to her. The next morning, I went to work as usual. Same trade. Same desk. I am not about to jeopardize my job because someone decided to test boundaries in my living room. Around midday, a mutual friend messaged asking what happened. Lena had already started telling people I overreacted to a harmless situation. I kept my response simple and factual. I came home early. There was another man in my apartment. She previously joked I would never catch her there. I ended it. No adjectives. No insults. When I got home that evening, there were no more unknown numbers. For the first time in weeks, my apartment felt like mine again. By the second day, the narrative shift was obvious. Instead of contacting me directly, Lena started working through social channels. A friend from our board game group called and asked if I really threw her out in the middle of the night over a misunderstanding. I asked what misunderstanding meant. Apparently the version circulating was that I came home paranoid, accused her of cheating without proof, and forced her out during an argument about trust. That is how quickly accountability becomes editing. I did not defame myself emotionally. I laid out the sequence in order. She joked publicly that I would never catch her cheating in my apartment. I staged an overnight trip. I returned quietly. There was a man on my couch. She said I was not supposed to be home. I packed her belongings because her name is not on the lease. Silence on the other end of the phone. When events are presented chronologically, they do not leave much room for interpretation. Later that afternoon, another unknown number tried to call. I declined it and blocked it without listening to the voicemail. If someone needs to reach me about something legitimate, They can do it through proper channels. Burner numbers are not proper channels. By evening I heard through a mutual friend that Lena was saying I refused to communicate and shut her out without giving her a chance to explain. That part is technically true. I did refuse to communicate, because there was nothing to clarify. She was not confused about what she was doing. She was not unaware I existed. She turned the situation around my supposed absence and told me I was not meant to be home. That is intent, not miscommunication. Another friend mentioned that Lena claimed she was just testing me to see how I would react. Testing. That word traveled back to me through someone else, which means she was comfortable admitting it out loud. This was not a misunderstanding. It was an experiment in control that failed. I did not respond publicly. I did not post anything. I did not argue in group chats. I simply stuck to the timeline whenever asked. By the end of the week, the noise died down. People tend to lose interest when there is no drama to feed on. I changed the locks that Saturday, not because she still had access. I had both keys. I changed them because I prefer zero margin for error. Some people argue. So people negotiate. I remove access and move on. And for the first time since that board game night, my apartment felt quiet in a good way. A week passed without direct contact. No new numbers. No emails. No surprise appearances outside my building. Just distance. Through mutual friends I learned that she had moved in temporarily with a coworker. Apparently the same coworker she claimed needed advice in my living room. That detail came to me secondhand, which means it was not a secret. I did not feel jealous hearing that. I felt validated. If the situation had truly been innocent, there would have been awkward avoidance. Instead, there was relocation. What had bothered me was the way she framed it socially. According to a friend, she said I was emotionally unavailable and pushed her away. That I created an environment where she felt neglected. I work a stable schedule. I am home most evenings. I cook. I plan weekends. I introduced her to my circle. Neglect is an interesting word when applied to someone who had unrestricted access to my space and time. But I also understand how these stories evolve. It is easier to say someone was cold than to admit you miscalculated their tolerance. The most telling part came from Marta. She messaged me privately and said she had not been at my apartment the night Lena claimed. She also said she had warned Lena that joking about cheating in someone's home was reckless. That confirmed two things. First, the joke was not spontaneous. Lena had discussed it before. Second, she assumed I would absorb it and move on. I did not respond with anger. I thanked Marta for clarifying and left it there. I am not interested in coalition building. I am interested in clarity. The apartment feels different now. Cleaner. Not physically, but mentally. There is no low-level tension about what version of reality I am being fed. When I come home from work, it is quiet. No passive-aggressive comments about how I stack plates. No subtle digs in front of friends. Just space. It has been a month now. No contact. No indirect messages. No attempts to circle back. The last update I heard was that she and the coworker are officially seeing each other. That information reached me through the same social pipeline that carried her earlier edits. I did not ask for it. It just arrives. That detail closes the loop cleanly. If what happened in my apartment was harmless, it would not have transitioned so smoothly into something formal. I have replayed the sequence once, calmly, to check my own logic. She publicly joked about cheating in my home. She invited a man over when she believed I was gone overnight. She told me I was not supposed to be home. She attempted to control the narrative when confronted. She framed my response as cruelty instead of consequence. There is no missing piece in that chain. Some friends have suggested I could have handled it differently, had a longer conversation, given her a chance to rebuild trust. But trust is not rebuilt through speeches. It is built through behavior. And her behavior showed planning, not impulse. What stands out most is not the betrayal itself. It is the assumption behind it. She genuinely believed I would either not notice or not act. That belief did not come from nowhere. It came from smaller moments where I let comments slide to keep peace. From nights where I accepted subtle disrespect because it seemed easier than addressing it. The cheating situation was not the first boundary she pushed. It was just the one that crossed a line I am not willing to redraw. Since then, my life has gone back to its normal rhythm. Work, gym, weekends with friends. The apartment is quiet in a way that feels stable instead of tense. I do not hate her. I do not wish her harm. But I also do not second-guess the decision. If someone tests whether they can cheat in your own home and you catch them in the rehearsal stage, you do not debate technicalities. You close the door, and you keep it closed. that you're, that give Barrel of the first